Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us on another episode of The BAM with Lori and Jenny. Today, super excited to have Lauren Wingate on our show. Lauren is a friend and also just an amazing badass mom that I'm so excited to share her story. She's going to talk about how she has done some crazy storm chasing. She's also going to talk about what's led her to her current now of doing some psychedelic therapy. And she's just going to talk about all the things about being a mom, raising two boys, and just give us a little insight into her journey. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This was when you first mentioned this to me, it just really excited me. I couldn't wait to do this. So thank you so much for having me, guys.
I kept asking Lori, I'm like, is this the one we meet? Is this the woman who does that? Yeah. I've been dying to have this conversation, so I keep bugging her. Is it this week? Is it this week?
Well, wait, we're gonna get to the psychedelic therapy stuff, but I want people to get to know a little bit more about you, Lauren. Where did you grow up? What were you interested in? What kind of led you to your current now? But I'm fascinated too. I've spent a lot of time talking to Lauren about her storm chasing adventure. I want to talk about that. So go ahead and kick it off, Lauren. Take us back.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up in New York, out on Eastern Long Island, and my mom and dad actually moved out there because my dad was in the Coast Guard at the Montauk Lighthouse when he was a lot younger, and then they just stayed out there. They absolutely loved it. So I feel blessed that I was able to grow up, on a beach out there in Eastern Long Island. I was always a bit of a wild child growing up. My mom would be laughing right now, hearing that. And no surprise that I ended up becoming or starting storm chasing as a hobby. When I moved out to Colorado, I loved the weather here. Everyone knows who lives here in Colorado that the weather is super wacky and we've got some killer storms in the spring. And I just randomly looked online one day just to see, what it was all about, if that really was a thing to go storm chasing.
Mm-hmm.
Twister was one of my favorite movies younger. And it was.
Did you watch the remake?
I did. And I went to go see it with my mom, and my mom did go storm chasing with me once. But yes, I thought it was good. It was funny because it is exactly what it's really like out there.
Okay, then I'll watch it. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, it's a little gimmicky and, easy,
Well, Glenn Powell's in it. Come on.
Actually, one of my storm chasing guides had a cameo in the movie. So that was hilarious to see him on that. But anyway, so I guess to get back and how I got into this, I've always been an adrenaline junkie. Like, I love skydiving. I like doing things that really put me over the edge, and I was really suffering from bad postpartum depression after I had both of my boys. I have a 7-year-old and 11-year-old, and I just was really feeling like I kind of lost myself and needed something to wake me up again, I guess, if you want to say that. And so I looked into this, and there was probably like a 2-year waiting list to get on storm chasing. There's a lot of storm chasing groups out there that you can go with, but after speaking with a couple different tour groups, one of them told me the most important thing to look for when you're going storm chasing is to find a small group, one that's not really big, because when you start a day of storm chasing, there's no like bathroom breaks. Those are a whole nother gamut of funny stuff.
You're finding a whole new group of best friends, right? You're meeting them and you're becoming best friends.
Oh, yeah. And you're in the car with them for 8, 9, 10 hours at a time, traveling from, the top of North America down to the bottom, like down to Texas. Yeah. It's crazy. And once that storm picks up, you got to get going. You got to get out of that car, race. And if you're waiting for 10 people to unload from the van, just doesn't work. So I put myself on this list, and when it was time to go, it just so happened that there was a huge outbreak setting up in the country for big storms. We saw 19 tornadoes that first
Holy
time.
crap.
Yeah, it was, we were in the car for 87 hours total, I think.
Shut up. Are these people okay? Did you form friendships or do you never speak to them again after this?
Oh, absolutely form friendships. I
Yeah.
am constantly texting with them, especially in the spring when the storms get really good.
Yeah.
And a lot of them continue to go back with that group, and I'll, be messaging them on Instagram. Oh, I'm so jealous. These storms are amazing. So you do form really beautiful friendships with these people, and they're from all over the world. I think I was the only American. Yeah. And people are like, wait, because, people in the US don't get why you would want to put yourself in harm's way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's like a tourist attraction for people elsewhere in the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Is
you've
it
done this once or twice?
I've done it 3 times.
3
Yeah.
times. Okay.
Yes. So
with the same super group?
yeah, with the same group. Some of the people were different. Some of them were the same. There's a group of Kiwis from New Zealand who go every single year. And they've booked out for like the next 10 years. They're, hardcore.
Is
But
it pricey to do? Like,
it
is
is.
it?
It
Yeah.
is pretty expensive. And it just depends on which week of the year you choose to go, because there's the peak of the season where the storms are 9 times out of 10, you're going to see a tornado if you
Yeah.
go during a specific period. So that's a more expensive. I would say I think it's like 4,700, 4,500.
Okay.
And that includes your hotel, like all of the
Okay.
gas. It doesn't include food.
You said you don't eat anyways. You basically are in
Yeah,
a
like you're
car.
eating out of gas
Right,
stations.
right.
It's disgusting. That's
It sounds like the relay when I ran the relay, except for it wasn't quite as long. But I mean, yeah, you pay a lot of money to sit in a car with a bunch of stinky people. I mean, I loved it. We had so much fun, but yeah, crazy what you'll pay for.
yeah, the stories are really funny sometimes. Like what you do with your time is also really interesting, and the games that you're playing, and
Yeah.
you have a lot of good laughs, and then you're sleeping a lot too. I like to sleep. Because I'm a night owl. I would stay up. We'd check into our hotel, sometimes 3 a.m. After chasing,
Yeah.
all afternoon and into the evening. And I'd write in my journal, write in my diary, about the day's events, and just so it was fresh in my memory, and I could remember all of it. I actually wrote this book. It has just like tons of pictures from the storm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's
That's so cool.
yeah, it's great. It's and I would paint too sometimes. Painting is another hobby of mine. So I'd go to like Walmart when we had a break or a down day that there was nothing going on, and go get some watercolors and kids drawing paper, and so I would keep myself busy, and then sleep a lot in the car.
How long were the trips?
About 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, and the first day I remember, I was so terrified upon landing in Oklahoma. That's where everyone would meet up.
Yeah.
And it was a really stormy night. And all of like the other girls who were, regulars on the trip from New Zealand were laughing at me because where's the storm shelter? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, was there ever a time you were like scared for your life where you were like,
Yeah, my legs were shaking. We had finished chasing that day, and I was running across the street to the Walmart from our hotel, and a huge downburst occurred while I was in the store by myself. And that's where like the storm cloud there's too much moisture, and it drops down. Instead of being a vortex, it feels like you're in a tornado. I mean, the whole building was shaking so loud, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's a tornado, and I have nowhere to hide."
Oh
And
my
the
God.
light went out, like
I'm gonna die in Walmart.
it was like, of all things, that was probably when I was most scared, because I couldn't ask, one of my guides, what's going on?
Yeah.
That was terrifying. The whole building was shaking. And all of them were laughing when I got back to the hotel. Oh my gosh, Lauren. And then also seeing my first tornado, watching the clouds as they're rotating above your head was very intense.
How close? How close
um,
are you?
well, I would say like within a quarter mile. And that's when the full funnel is forming, but there's also rotating clouds that are not far at all from you. I'm thinking like, from one end of my house to the other, like that's how close it is. And you're just watching this over your head and thinking, oh my gosh,
Wow.
drop down right on top of my head. But as you learn more about how a storm forms, you'll know where it is where the wall cloud is, what the indicators are, as you learn more about it, then it's not as terrifying. But my legs were shaking that first day.
Oh yeah.
And you're dry pale and it's wild.
How did your husband, like when you were like, I want to go do the storm chasing thing? How did he respond?
It's like, okay. Well, I totally, it doesn't, I don't think it surprises him because he knows about me too, that I'm such a weather nerd and I like things that are dangerous.
What other adrenaline type things? Because I know we're going to move into the other stuff too, but I want to hear like what other like adrenaline junkie things have you done?
I love to skydive. I love snowboarding. I almost killed myself snowboarding once. Going down a cornice and I fell and broke 3 ribs and fusions all over my back. And I choose to do these things by myself, which is, but
is that because nobody else wants to do them with you, or like you just like
everyone's like, I'm not doing that. I mean, there's plenty of people that like to snowboard and or ski and push the boundaries and stuff, but I would say storm chasing is really kind of my favorite thing. And I always loved scary movies when I was younger. Just
you like that adrenaline, like that, just that.
And I'm just a wild child, so I've got a lot of energy.
So that's a good question, Lauren. So being kind of that wild personality, just go out there and try everything and do things. How did that change when you had kids? Because you have 2 boys. Did that make you more like, does it make you want to go do more crazy shit, or did it like ground you a little?
Yeah, it's a shock to the system when you become a mom for the first time. Some people are made to become mothers, and it comes so naturally and effortlessly for them. And I struggled with that because you are with this baby for forever. And it's just a huge halt in your life. You're not doing the same things you were doing. Your social life goes down the dumps, and you're spending a lot of time at home. And I remember my mom always being like, make sure you sleep when the baby sleeps because you're going to burn out, and so that was really hard for me to slow down and to not be able to go out and do all of these things that I used to do. And I got really bad postpartum depression as well. And that lingered, for a good amount of time, through even after I had my second. I had another really bad bout of postpartum. And that's what kind of led me to storm chasing. And, once they were old enough where I could actually leave them for, a specific amount of time, that it was kind of a beautiful way to grow. Sometimes you have to step back before you can step forward.
When you had postpartum, did you seek treatment for it, like medical treatment, or because I'm curious, like, did the storm chasing do more for you than the medicine? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like sometimes we just have to get back to fucking nature or something that like brings us alive.
Totally. Absolutely. I remember I didn't think anything was wrong with me. Even though I would carry like the baby monitor around everywhere. And my husband's like, oh my God, it's like your pacemaker. I was just in neurotic behavior. And he was like, I think you might have postpartum depression. And I was like, I'm not sad. And I'm like, I am. And then I did seek out treatment, but it wasn't until maybe 8 months postpartum that I actually like went and saw someone, and I got on antidepressants, and that helped bring me out of it. It took a while, but it did help. And then I stayed on that for a while and just, working out and stuff like that. But it wasn't, I felt kind of numb. I didn't fully feel back to my normal self. So it wasn't until doing what I did, going storm chasing, that really just woke me up, and it was humbling. And I remember crying when I first saw my first tornado. It was just this wow factor.
It was like an emotional release of so much more, right?
Absolutely. Like the sheer power of these storms when it's not far from you at all, and you're feeling the wind on your face and you're driving through the hail. It's like you get an electric shock, and it's incredible. It just food for the soul. I mean,
it's like it brings you alive. Like it just, all your senses are heightened, right?
Absolutely. Completely. And I wasn't the only one that started crying. Like there were other people that started crying. And you also think about, the destruction that we drove through a town once that a storm had ripped through. 3 people had died. I mean, you could smell the trees that had snapped in half, and gas leaks, and that's emotional too. That's the hard part of storm chasing, is knowing the damage it causes. And I had people write nasty messages on Instagram on my posts, because here I am excited about it, where there's other people that are really suffering. So it's raw emotion, a lot of raw emotion all around.
So interesting. Okay, so let's kind of keep moving along and talk about where you are now and what you're doing, which is the psychedelic therapy, which we're very interested to dive into. And you are going back to school, and you are studying kind of journey therapy, as they call it, correct? Okay, so tell us more about that, because I think a lot of listeners aren't going to be really dialed into what that all means.
Yeah. So I had looked into ketamine therapy for myself, which is a form of psychedelic. It's not your natural psychedelic. It's made in a lab, but it's also an anesthetic. So it's I like to joke around that it's the spa of psychedelics. It's the easiest psychedelic to do, because it blocks the pain receptors in your brain, so you can't really have a bad experience. I mean, some people beg to differ, but for me, it was a lot easier. And I remember the first, you take the medicine and you go inward. It's like an onion being peeled back. Your mind, your ego suppresses trauma in your body, that you carry around with you everywhere, from your childhood, that you haven't been able to let go of. And so I remember I'm halfway into my journey, and it feels like Disney World. You're on a Disney World ride. It's really crazy. And I remember halfway through, I said to my psychotherapist, I have to be a part of this. This is incredible. This is absolutely incredible. And after doing my initial 8 treatments, it helps so much with depression, really alleviates. It's a wonderful option for people that don't necessarily want to be on an SSRI, antidepressants for the rest of their lives. And a lot of people have been able to get off of medicine that they've been on for a long time because of this medicine. So she said to me, she was like, you can be a part of this. And I'm thinking, well, I don't have 7 years to go back to become a psychologist and psychiatrist. And she was like, no, right here in Boulder, because all these medicines, these natural medicines, are becoming legal now. They created schools for people to become facilitators. And while I would never be able to prescribe or facilitate with ketamine because you need to be a prescribing clinician or a nurse practitioner, I can hold space for someone. And that means, being a sitter, being their secondary nervous system. So they are tapping into you regulating your own emotions while they're in an altered state of consciousness. And then with the natural medicine, I am going for my license to be a licensed facilitator and psychedelic therapist, working with natural medicines. And that is consists of cannabis, psilocybin mushrooms, DMT, ayahuasca. It's going to take a long time for me to learn about all of those medicines. But so far in school, I worked with psychedelic cannabis the first few months, and now I'm working with psilocybin. And psilocybin is much more complicated. And the government, the state of Colorado is still working out a lot of regulations and rules around this. It's still very new. I'll be probably one of the first graduating classes from this school, specifically working with psilocybin. So I'm still very much learning. And I would not call myself a guide yet, although I've done a lot of practice with other classmates and friends and family. And it's a beautiful, beautiful therapy. It's a huge breakthrough for mental health.
First of all, do you know how, you mentioned ketamine and people have been able to get off of their SSRIs or their medications. Do you know how it works? Like, how does it help you do that?
Okay, yeah, it taps into a part of the brain called glutamate. And basically what it's doing is creating this sponge-like, it's putting your brain in a sponge-like state of mind so that it's not the journey itself while you're on the medicine that's making the change. It's the 72 hours afterwards. Because basically you can adapt to new behaviors. Like people with addiction, it can help. You're basically learning all new ways to cope with stress, and you're like I said, adapting to new behaviors. Like when you're a child, how they say you should learn a bunch of languages, because your brain is a sponge. It's doing the same exact thing. You can learn things so fast. When people are ready to change, this is like doing 10 sessions of talk therapy in one. But it doesn't cure just from one session. It's something that you have to do consistently. I think a lot of people get confused by that, thinking, oh, well, I did one session and I'm still right where I was. It will give you some relief.
It's like anything. Everybody wants it yesterday, and they just have to realize that it takes time. There's not that magic solution, but there are solutions that are better than others, right? And so, like you said, the first time that you did it, you had like an 8-session.
Yeah, I did 8 sessions. I did one session a week for 8 weeks. And it was a big commitment. It was a big financial commitment. However, it was worth every penny because I'm starting a new career, something I feel really passionate and excited about, and being able to help people who are really in pain and suffering. And that is the main drive behind this, because I went through that, it takes one to know one kind of thing. When you've suffered like that, you can feel other people's pain. I'm very empathetic. I'm a huge empath, and I sometimes to a fault, it's like I can absorb everyone else's energy and it's exhausting sometimes, but I am so passionate about this. It's a beautiful, beautiful practice. And, you really, when I said you have to really be committed to make the changes, it's everything in your life, eating better, exercising, really practicing self-love and self-care. It's hard to do when you're feeling so depressed. And this allows you to open yourself up to make these changes. It makes it a lot easier.
And say, so if somebody goes into the experience where they're like, okay, I'm going to do this because I heard it's, supposed to help me, and they don't have that open mind to really, making changes that, there has to be effort made on all levels, I think. But do you think those are the people that don't get the most out of it then, that are just kind of that negative, this isn't going to work. Okay, maybe it helped a little bit, but just kind of.
And also, I think that there's people out there that are like, oh, well, I want to try it just because I heard it's fun. Or,
Yeah.
and then you also need a really strong support network too. That's, rallying around you, that's helping support this big change that you're making. For some people, it can change really fast, and other people, it takes years of work to do.
Go, like, you did the 8 sessions. Will you have to do it again, or?
Yeah, so I will do like booster sessions every so
Okay.
often, just to kind of like for maintenance. But once you do that initial set, it really kind of launches you forward, and you get a lot of relief from it. And yeah, I would say that on average is usually what people do. And then, at the center the Center for Medicinal Mindfulness, where I'm going to school, they're also a center to do therapy for people coming in seeking help. And they'll mix different medicines. Some medicines are better for people with PTSD, some medicine better for people with depression. Some medicines are not good for, any of these people. Schizophrenia and bipolar are kind of they're difficult to treat with psychedelics. And because I'm still a student, I don't want to say anything, out of turn, because I'm still learning so much. But there's a lot of contraindications that can arise. That if you have really high blood pressure, most likely ketamine's probably not great for you. But everything is taken into account. Medicine.
Well, it just goes to, just like anything that you're going to do with medicine, right? You just want to talk to somebody who knows to look for those things. So these weekend warriors that are like, I'm going to do it, this just goes to show, like, be careful about that. One thing,
yeah,
this is a dumb question, but flex spending does not cover this yet, right? Like, it'd be amazing if it did, but I'm guessing it doesn't.
There actually is. I just found this company that is covered. They're at-home ketamine.
Okay.
Company that is covered by insurance.
Really?
And there is also S-ketamine, which is a nasal spray. I have not done that before, but most of the time, like if you're doing it there's multiple ways to do ketamine therapy. You can do it intravenously, intramuscularly, or sublingually under your tongue, where it's like a little rapid dissolving tablet. And the ones with intravenous and intramuscular, I don't know if those are covered by insurance. Okay. And then the nasal spray, I think is, and that's FDA approved. Okay. But all the other forms are not approved because they are used off label.
Yeah.
These are all prescription. Like people have to have these prescribed.
It is legal, completely legal, just not. S-ketamine is the only one that's FDA approved for the treatment of depression. The other ones.
Which ones have you tried?
Sublingually. I use the troches, they're lozenges that just rapidly dissolve under your tongue. You hold it in your mouth for about 10-15 minutes, and then spit it out, and you're on your way to wherever.
Have you tried psilocybin and ketamine and have you tried ayahuasca?
I have never tried ayahuasca. I'm actually a little nervous because I myself have contraindications for that specific medicine. I'm working on getting off of my SSRIs right now in order to do that, because it blunts the effects of the medicine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And with psilocybin as well. So there is a lot of reasons why I'm trying to get off the medicine, but not just to use another one, but more because who wants to have to take a pill for the rest of their life?
I know. Well, I actually really want to try ayahuasca. I did not know that about the SSRI. I'm on them too. So that is another thing, but I'm terrified of vomit. I don't know if I ever said that on the show, but I have a vomit phobia. And so I'm like, I really want to do it, but I don't think I could do.
So what's the difference, I guess, like in the journey sense of the two, with the ayahuasca versus the ketamine? Like,
it's just the different parts of the brain that they're signaling.
Okay. So you do the journey guiding and yourself too, I'd like to know, Did you remember the full experience? Like, is this something you came out of and you're like, wow, like you said, it was like a ride and you came out of it and you remembered it all? Or were there parts that when you had someone guiding your journey too, that you were like, oh, did I see that? Or is it something you complete like a dream, like
Yeah.
remember some parts, but not all?
Yeah, it depends on the journey. And it also depends on the dose as well. The higher the dose, the less you'll remember. The
Okay.
lower the dose, they're very vivid. I personally think the lower doses are better. You just remember more, a lot more. You have more agency and in where you want kind of your journey to go. It's going to take you where it's going to take you, but yes, everything can be really vivid. Like you're watching HD TV. It's so clear. It's wild. And really, you can have some incredibly profound experiences where you feel like you're in the presence of God. My father was an atheist growing up, so I was not really exposed to religion. Now one of my boys is going to Catholic school and we go to church on Sundays, but I was not really exposed to religion. And I had a experience that was, I came out sobbing, hysterically crying. I had never felt anything like that before. I blew my mind, absolutely blew my mind. And then there's journeys like a psychedelic cannabis journey that can bring up memories from the past of things that you didn't even remember, that you didn't even know because you suppressed it for so long. And that will come out sometimes with your body shaking, twitching. Sometimes you're vocalizing. And I was singing to like my whole class. We were in a group journey in a ceremony, and that was my way of releasing trauma that I had been carrying around that I didn't even know about. And some of it can be very vivid, and the memories, it's very somatic where you really feel it in your body. A whole part of your body will just warm up and you'll just feel the sensations. You'll cry. It's wild. And I do that with breath work a lot, which is really powerful. I'm not sure if you guys have ever done breath work.
I did one in Sedona. I told the woman, I was like, I've wanted to do like a journey, like a psilocybin or something. This was years ago. And she said, I can get to a similar thing with breath work. And so she did a breath work.
Yeah, it's wild. It's really incredible how that can evoke so much emotion and let so much out. And what they like to say at our school is a symptom is something halfway out of the body. So, when you're shaking and stuff like that, that's literally all of this stuff, like this junk, they call it dross, that's just collected and built up in your body, and you're letting it out. And so the next day you feel 100 times lighter. It's remarkable, mind blowing, and how the medicines all work so differently. You're seeing things, but it's different. It just feels different. I think that natural medicines are a little bบharder sometimes because you're facing your shadows, the parts of yourself that you don't necessarily want to see, you're there, but it's literally teaching you a lesson. It's making you go face to face with your demons, and it really helps move you forward in life after experiencing something like that.
Well, Lori, to your point, like when you said, like, do you have to be open, or can you just do it if you're like, oh, I heard this might help? And I wonder, like, our brains are so powerful. If you don't want to face something, your brain will keep you from facing it, which is why we suppress all this crap, right?
Yeah. It's set and setting is incredibly important. And what I mean by set is your mindset going into it. There's a lot of preparation work that goes into before the journey. And then there's work to do after the journey. And, taking care of yourself, making sure you get plenty of rest, setting intentions is incredibly important. Your intention is kind of like your anchor while you're on the journey. If something is unsettling or upsets you or is scary, just go back and remember your intention of why did we start here? Why are we doing this? What was the purpose? What are our goals? What do we want out of this experience? And, just not watching, social media before going into a journey, because that stuff will come up. I did that once and it was a big mistake.
Just to show you what that does to your brain, right? Like that stuff that we're seeing all the time.
Yeah, it's very powerful, and filling your mind with beautiful things, going out in nature, going for a walk, smelling the flowers, all of that can really impact your experience. Doing
So
art.
what's the typical time? Right? I'm curious. So like when a person goes on these journeys, like what is it like 10 minutes, 15, 30? Is it an hour? I'm just curious what the beginning to end
So
time frame is.
ketamine is much shorter than the natural medicines. Ketamine, I would say roughly between 45 minutes to 2 hours, I would say
Wow.
somewhere around there. Sometimes people fall asleep, at certain points during their journey because it's very relaxing. You feel like you're floating, you're at ease. And then with cannabis, sometimes we do like there's different formats depending on how long you want the journey to be because you do it with music sets. The music really kind of guides your journey as well, and those are longer, from anywhere from like 3 to 5 hours. And then psilocybin is anywhere from 5 to 8 hours, and then ayahuasca is like 12 hours. I've never done ayahuasca.
So Jenny, when you go do that someday, I'll know where you are for like
Yeah, I know. I'll be out of pocket.
Yeah.
Do you get to pick your music, by the way?
I'm sorry, what?
You get to pick your music?
Yes, when you're doing ketamine, you can pick your music. Typically you want all ambient music. You don't want anything with words. It can be very distracting. So, and you want things that are light and happy and, but with cannabis and psilocybin, it can be very evocative. You will have a lot of music that might scare you, really stay away from words, but that playlist is usually chosen for you.
Okay.
And that's half the fun of being a guide, is making the playlist.
Oh, totally. I know. Lori, that was one of my favorite parts of spin instructing. I loved making playlists.
Yeah, so fun. It really evokes the emotion and gets people motivated. The music can make people cry. It can make people scared. I've heard in ceremony people growling. I mean, it's wild. Yeah. Especially with the breath work.
So what is the next step? So how much longer do you have left of school? And then, what then are you looking forward to next steps? Like you said, this is very new. And so when you talk to people about it too, I'm curious the responses you're getting from, the moms groups or whoever you're chatting with. Like, are they open to this?
It's like I don't know. It's hard to navigate sometimes because I do feel like I've scared people a little bit sometimes, or they're like, oh, I don't want my son hanging out with her. So I haven't really vocalized it. I have spoken more about it with moms that I'm closer with, that because it's just not for everyone. Some people are very against it. They think it's a horrible idea. It's touchy feely. So, but for the most part, people are very excited about it and they want to know more. And I've turned a lot of people onto it and have gone on to do their own, ketamine therapy. I work really closely, the at-home ketamine company that I get my medicine from. I talk to them all the time. I've talked to the medical director, and while I don't work for them, I've turned a lot of people on to what they're doing. And then they go and do their meetings with the prescribing clinicians and doctors and therapists, and they get their own medicine sent to them. And then I'll hold space for them because you have to have someone sitting there, even though it's for safety, to make sure they're not getting up and tripping and falling or, but it's very low dose. So I would say it's very safe. But some people are just not, they don't get it and they don't want to get it. They don't agree with it.
I mean, we're in Colorado, which is pretty good about most of that stuff. So I could imagine if you were in the Midwest, or maybe it wouldn't be as accepted, but you're in a decent place for that.
Yeah. I think I'm the only person in my whole class that is just a mom. I'm like not practicing any sort of therapy. I'm not a yoga instructor. I'm not a psychotherapist. Almost all of them are. They're massage therapists. And I'm just like, I just am fascinated with this and I want to be a part of it and I want to learn more. And I'm not sure where, to answer your question, Lori, I'm not really sure where this is going to lead me yet. I will have my license to facilitate. I might work in a group space with some of my other classmates, and do, personal guide work, be able to, facilitate with my own clients. I might work for another center. I'm not really sure yet. I feel like I have a lot more learning to do before I really can make a career out of this. I still have a long way to go. But I'm enjoying the process. It's really been incredible.
And how long is the school? How long is the actual education that you're doing?
Well, if I can get all of my credentialing hours in, I should have my license around like August, September.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've put in.
When did you start?
I started this past summer.
Okay.
So, but I did a fast track, where I was doing intensives like for 12 hours a day for, 3 solid weeks. And while we're doing, the practicums and the experientials where we're journeying ourselves, we're also guiding, I think that's where so much of the solid knowledge comes from, is the experience itself.
Yeah.
And I've been, the guinea pig for a demonstration with my instructor, and did a breathwork cannabis session in front of all of my classmates, and they were videotaping it, and I was crying and moving, shaking, and it's
vulnerable.
Well, yeah, it's wonderful. But a lot of it is learning and online as well. We do a lot of Zoom classes. But when you do the experientials, you have to be there in person, just for sure. Precautions and all of that. But there's a lot of these kind of schools popping up now all over the country.
I believe it. I mean, it's so interesting. So you have done so much in your 2 years of life. What are you most proud of, right? You're raising your kiddos, you're in the thick of it, you've done all this amazing stuff, you have a successful marriage, you're, following your passion and dreams. Like, what are you most proud of?
Becoming resilient, finding myself again. That was really hard. I was so depressed, and be able to bounce back from that and be there for my kids, be a role model for them, and to help them, be the best they can be by being a good role model. And when, I'm gone one day, they'll say, oh, my mom was crazy. She did storm chasing. She, was a psychedelic therapist, and having stories about me. And, sometimes I think my kids get embarrassed of me, but they're like, Mom, stop.
Yeah. That's just normal. They're all embarrassed of us.
Yeah, totally.
I'm like, moms can have fun too. That's what I tell my
know.
I'm like, moms can dance, moms can sing, and we can have fun too.
And I think that that's what being a badass mom really is, being able
to go
be yourself and smile and be happy and, live life to the fullest. Because, one day it's, it comes to an end. Although in your psychedelic journey is that I beg to differ, because, into a new venture, it makes dying not so scary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's what I'm most proud of, is that I was able to bounce back and push through, because it's hard. Becoming a mom, even if you're not depressed, is like, whoa, shock to the system. It's the hardest job in the world.
Everything you've said today is amazing. If people keep an open mind, that's the best thing regarding anything, right? Is going to, go into experiences open-minded, live your life with an open mind, and truly, never judge, right? Yeah. So, I think that's all just wonderful to hear. Jenny, anything else?
I mean, a billion other questions, but have you back?
Right. Well, we'll have Lauren back on, right?
Well, I'm pretty sure Sean would not let me hang out with you, because I'd get hurt doing I'd be like, yeah, I'll do that with you, and then I'd hurt myself. So
Jenny always jokes she's like the klutz, right? Like everything she does, she ends up
accident prone.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so lovely to chat with you. And I look forward to, chatting again here in another year or two to see how things are going. And
this was so fun to chat and share this all with you. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Thank you.